I've been looking forward to this for a long time. In fact, it's something I've been wanting to do for many years. It's been getting a lot of requests for this kind of thing, but it's something that's unique. I'm taking a little risk today doing this on TV. There are just some things that are difficult to do in this kind of format, as you might guess. But we're going to make an attempt anyway. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. So I hope you'll stick with us for the next 3 or 4 sessions. And also, I want to keep in mind that this is an acrylic painting, and it's going to be done on an 18 by 24 stretched canvas. And you can do these paintings on almost any surface, but this particular painting, I really feel like it's easier to work on a stretched canvas. Now, this painting is going to be called Northern Lights Spectacle. Yeah, let me get it right. The Northern Lights Spectacle. Now, a lot of you know this as the Aurora Borealis. These are the northern lights that we hear about and see mostly in the North Country and Alaska and so forth. I've heard that you can see these lights in the other areas, but more prominent and prevalent up there in Alaska. And remember now, we're on a journey around the country. We've already been in several states. Like Texas, we did the Blue Bonnets, and we've done Multnomah Falls up in Oregon, and we're all over the country now. Now we're going to move up into Alaska, and we're going to do the Aurora Borealis lights. All the phenomenal colors and beautiful blending techniques. It's very much like blending a portrait. So that's what I want to talk to you about this morning before we ever get started. This painting will probably take about 4 sessions, so hang on to your hat to get ready for this ride. I think you're going to enjoy it. Now, let me explain a few things. As you can see, I've already pre-coated the canvas. Now, this is the one I'm going to use, but I'm going to show you how to get this coating. Now, this is a canvas that's called an ultra smooth or a portrait smooth canvas. The difference between the two is you have a little tighter weave. Now, here's what it looks like uncoated. You can see it's got a very fine, it's probably hard for you to see on the TV, but it's got a very fine, tight, it's not a real square, lumpy effect. It's real smooth. But it's still got enough tooth that when you blend, you can get some nice soft edges, make some nice round blends. And that's what we need for this particular painting. Your traditional landscape painter canvases, the cotton dust, these are by the way cotton, are sometimes a little coarser. But remember, you can get canvases in all coarse, medium, fine, extra fine, you can get all kinds of texture. So, but this painting almost requires a much smoother surface. So I just wanted to let all of you know that. Now, that being said, I'm going to show you this. Now, I'm going to show you how to achieve this color. So this color is absolutely necessary for what we're going to do. But let me show you the reference material first. Over here, most of you are familiar with what's called the Northern Lights or the Aurora Borealis. I'm no scientist. I have no clue how it all happens. I don't, know that it makes a lot of difference to the painting. But this is a photograph that came off of a calendar somewhere. And we're not going to copy this, but I want you to see some of the effects that we're going to try to achieve here. The beautiful lights, there's no particular direction. They just swirl all over the sky. This one has to be sort of a vertical movement. These are some, look at these, aren't these spectacular? This is look at the way this just comes across like a rainbow. And there's some other deep purples in there, the yellow-green. Look at the yellow-green swirl almost like a tornado. Of course, in Oklahoma, we have tornadoes a lot here. And there's a little white glow, and then you got all the little bursts out here. Here's another one that's kind of interesting. Look at this beautiful, really bright crimson color right underneath the yellow-green. And then here's some more of the yellow-green. Seems to be yellow-green to be a fairly consistent color here. But then here's one that kind of goes into the turquoise tones. There's another that's kind of swirled. Look at this one. Now, this one's more of a horizontal format. But nonetheless, you can see the different bright colors. Now, this is the one that I'm considering using similar in terms of the movement, because I like the way I can break this up in different pockets of negative space. Oh, look at this one. This one's really cool. Look at this. It's just so fascinating what you can do with this. Now, this one's a little more of a lighter sky. Most of these have the darker contrast, which is what we're going to work with. It's a little more dramatic when you do that. So keep in mind, folks, we're going to really use the contrast rule in this particular painting to really make this painting come alive and talk to it, so to speak. So that's some of the reference material we're going to use. Before we can even go there, you need to prepare the canvas properly. Now, in my studio, I went ahead and graded this one, but I want you to notice there are some hairs in here. Now, I hear this problem all the time. Oh, I got a hair on my canvas. You worry about it. if the hairs bother you, and sometimes, granted, a hair that's in the way in the wrong spot might be an issue. In this case, it could be because it's mostly sky and I don't want it to pop out somewhere. So once you've coated your canvas, if you have any hairs, after you put the base on, you just take a sanding pad, whichever kind you choose, and if you lightly do this, go in a circular motion, you can get almost every single hair out, and it flattens the surface out where it was, and then you don't have to deal with that anymore. See that hair came right off, it's real smooth right there now. That one came off, this one came off. I had quite a few, because we're going to do some of the blending with our hake brush, and most of you know that this following the show for many years now. Your hake brush is made out of goat hair, the finest hair known to man that you can make a paintbrush out of, pretty much. And so it sheds a little bit. That's just their nature. So if you get one and you're kind of new to this, don't let that bother you. That is normal, okay? Now, once you've kind of got the coat on there, then we'll start. But I want to show you how to do this because it's a little different than before, folks. We'll take the blank canvas now. I'm going to shock all of you here. Many of you have been watching the show since we started back, I think, around 1986 or 87. And I don't think I've ever done this before. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take my color, and I'm just going to squirt it out here off the tubes. Then I'm going to take my number 10 bristle brush. I'm going to smush it all together. Then I'm going to take my hake brush and smooth it out. And that way, you'll get a nice, even distribution of this particular color scheme. So here's how the process is going to start. I'm going to unscrew my tube lids here so I can be ready. Now, I'm going to take my mister bottle. I'm going to lightly mist the canvas. I've got tubes in each hand, one in each hand here. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start squirting. Green. Oh, by the way, my good idea to know what these are. We got Hooker's green and dioxazine purple. Those are the two colors. Whatever. Just play like you're a kid again. That would be kind of a good thing to think about. Now you just throw in the purple kind of in similar locations. Heck, that would be modern art right there. Alright. Now, take your number 10 bristle brush, take a little bit of your white here or your gesso, and you scatter a little bit of it just around in the painting. Don't get too much white in it, you do need some. And of course, we can always add more stuff here as we need to. But the little bit of white gives it just a little bit of opacity and a little blending. Alright, now you've got it all on there. Now, anybody can do this. There's no way you can mess that up. That's impossible. Have your hake brush ready. I normally have it rinsed out, squeegeed out with my fingers, and set aside. Now, just take this brush. Now, the only reason we do this, you guys, let me just say this. Just because I'm showing it to you on the TV show, that doesn't mean that's the only way to achieve it. There are multiple roads to many cities. Take your own. If you like to go one way, go another way. I like always to take the scenic route. My wife doesn't like the scenic route as much sometimes, and vice versa. So there may be another way. I suggest that you not pre-mix a big pile of this color and just paint it on because you want to see a little modeling in there. So by putting these colors on like this, now you take your brush and you just scumble all of it together very quickly. Just model it all together until it all becomes a similar tone, but it's a little on the purple side, just enough white to kill the darkness, so it's not just black. We are going to use a lot of dark in this painting. Just kind of go through. All this is doing is evening out the globs of paint, so when you blend, it makes blending easier. But frankly, this is faster anyway. If you're doing a painting where you're trying to get sort of a multicolored background, this is one way to do it. A lot of portraits, figures, some animal things. This works good for that. All right, once you kind of model it, what you want to look for or any real thick blobs of paint that need to be smushed in a little bit, flattened out. That's what I'm looking for here. Now, can you see how this color all came together? It's not a real strong purple. It's not a real strong green. The green and the purple gray each other out to some degree, and you create this beautiful tint that we're going to use for the underpainting for all of the color that goes on here. This is quite a process in this thing, you guys, so stick with me. Now, I'm going to rinse this brush out, lay it down. I'm going to take my mister bottle. The beauty of working with these acrylics that I like, at least, is if you understand the procedures, you can make them blend for a long time. Now, a lot of you that paint with oil say, I just hate acrylic because they dry so fast. Well, I like it for that reason. I've learned how to manipulate the paint so that the drying time doesn't affect what I do. And that's what I'm trying to teach all of you about the acrylics. Don't misunderstand, I love oil, and I still paint with a lot of oil, but I love acrylic because it dries quickly, and I can move on to the next process or the next layer. Now see, lightly mist that again to give yourself a little blending time. I've actually worked on big murals, you guys, where I've painted up to, kept the painting wet for 30 minutes, and just by lightly misting it. Now, you've got your brush ready, and you guys remember the process here. Use X's, don't streak it. We'll start in a corner and start Xing. Now, here's how you know things are working right. That should be a real smooth feel to it. It's like soft butter. Now, if you'll notice my brush here, see it staying together? See, there's no separation on the bristles. They are nice and tight, got a nice chisel, and that's all it's required. Use nice X's, work your way up, and you overlapping your strokes, feathering. You don't have to push real hard. It's more of a light feather, but go quickly. See how quickly I'm blending? Now, if it starts to get a little tacky and a little sticky, and it does in here because of the hot light, just lightly mist again. Now, I'm going to warn you about misting. Anytime you mist, the mist, when it dries, if you don't work the mist in, it sometimes will leave little white spots where the water separates the paint, creates when it evaporates. So, see, I missed it, so I'm going to quickly hit this again so that the little spots don't appear. Now notice, even though I'm going fast, see, these are X's. It'll be a real quick habit to get into streaking. Most people do that if they haven't been taught and aren't disciplined. I finally learned to discipline myself not to streak crossways. But you want nice big X's, each one overlapping the other. Just keep working your way through. Get this. Now, I'm sure some of you that are watching right now probably live in Alaska, and you've seen these lights many times, and oh my gosh, we've had so many people, and even in some of my workshops around the country, ask, well, how do you paint things like that? Well, I'm going to show you. It's not hard, but it does require a process. Now, what I'm doing is making sure, once again, that there's no hard lines, no real thick splotches anywhere. That looks pretty even. You just want to make sure the canvas is covered good. Now, remember, this is all going to be covered again anyway when you start putting all the colors on, but you need a good base to work on. So there's that. It's all done, and again, when it dries, if you see a hair or two that just bugs the daylight out of you, just take a little piece of sand of your. Be sure when you use sandpaper, get something that's got a little sponge to it or a little give to it, so that you can roll it on there and it doesn't hurt your canvas too much. All right, so there's that. Now that's how you do it. Well, just so we don't waste a lot of time on the show, let's set this one aside. And I'm going to bring the one that's already done up here. One hair that I didn't get off. Okay, now this is nice and dry. And I might mention to you that it takes an acrylic painting, well, it can be dry to touch in just a few minutes, but I always like to give it a cure time of at least 30 minutes to an hour before I do any major work on it. You can do minor things right away, and I do that all the time. But when I got something like this, it's pretty intense. I let this cure for at least an hour. Now I'm going to take my white pastel pencil, and I've made me a little sketch here, but I kind of hesitate to show it because it looks kind of goofy. I do know how to draw, but I had to come up with some kind of a composition that would allow the sky still to be the feature. Now remember one thing, we've talked about this over the years. Whenever you compose a painting, you've got two things to think about. You either have what's called a center of interest, where you have one object. That is where you want to get your eye to go. So use all the components like, eye stoppers and overlap and the negative space rule and all kinds of things. Pulling your eye in, never leaving anything out, but dragging in, putting all your light towards the center. If you have no particular object like a deer or an elk or a person or something you want to focus on, then you have what's called a focal area. Now the focal area may just mean a large area, and you kind of enjoy the whole process. Well, that's what we have today. We have a painting that we're going to do. Let me find the one that I kind of want to use. Okay, I'm going to use this one for the most part, but I'm going to put a little more swirl in it, but I'm going to also add some more color to it. I want it to be much more colorful. And I think that's what this lesson is really all about. How do I get that much color in an acrylic painting? Because all of you know what happens with acrylic. When it dries, it does what? You get it, it darkens, it dulls out. When the water evaporates, the pigments revert back to their standard, whatever you want to say, pigmentation, and they get a little darker. So what I'm going to do is show you the process of building these up in layers, and it's the same technique we use when we do rainbows. And I think we did one some time ago, so it would be the same technique. So here's the deal. We want the sky to be our feature. I'm going to have the swirl of the light source coming up like this, and I may have a little swoop. I'm going to have negative space where these X's are. I'm going to have a low horizon, because once again, the feature is not a particular thing. It's going to be the light moving up through the sky here with some nice little swirls and movements to it. I'm going to have some distant mountains, so I'm going to sketch in these, and these will be silhouetted. If you see this light sketch, this will be a silhouette of the mountains, and then there'll be some pine trees that silhouette, kind of like what you see here. I really do like that effect of the silhouette of those. See how cool that looks in there? I think that's just a fabulous effect. And then we might put a little mountain cabin in there that has a light in the window, maybe a little smoke coming out of the chimney, something to make it kind of fun and interesting. Not that it would be the feature, but it would be what we call, just the added support material to make the painting look good. So that's going to be a simple composition. It's the process that's going to be, I think, the most interesting to you. So this is going to be your main peak, will be way to the right of center. Then you have some little residual mountains. Then we'll have our trees coming up here, the silhouette against the base of the sky. All right, now then, this is where it gets pretty exciting, in my opinion. Now you're going to go back to your number 10 bristle brush. Rinse it out good. Now let me give you some rules, and I really almost want to find myself apologizing for this particular first session because I have to do so much explaining. But most of you know me well enough to know that I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I want to make sure there's no misunderstanding on how we approach this painting. Anytime you have a dark background, like this one is, and you want to put bright color on it, you can't, for instance, if I can get them to come down here to the palette now, if I took yellow or orange or red or yellow-green over here and just picked it up, even though it looks bright here, and brought it up here to the canvas, started putting it on to get the bright color, it may appear bright for the moment, but when it dries, it dulls because those are very transparent colors, and the moisture evaporates and it dies. It just dies. So anytime you want to put brighter color on a darker surface, you have to have a lighter phase underneath it. Let me explain what I mean. Take your number 10 brush, take a little white, come down here on your palette, and I want you to make a very soft gray with blue and burnt sand and white. See that gray I'm making right there? Now, we're going to do quite a bit of blending in this painting, folks, so that's why at the beginning of the show I told you to be patient and just follow this. You're going to take your brush. Now you're going to do what's called dry brush blending. Wipe most of it out along the horizon here. where I know I'm going to have some real bright colors so the mountains will show up. I'm going to start on the left-hand side. I'm going to start scumbling. Now I'm scumbling in a circular motion. I want you to dry brush in this grayish tint. See, I'm doing that until it kind of fades up. You can already see it looking like soft light. Well, that's what you're going to do now. By the way, notice I'm using the whole, what we call the chisel edge of the brush. Roll it, use an overhand hold, gradually feather it up into, down to about where your mountain sketch is, and then up into the sky, feathering it gradually until it disappears, where there's no edge. It's just a hazy little blend. Now, because I know I'm going to have a little burst of light up here, watch what I'm going to do now. See, I've already started this one. Now we go to this one. Yeah, I'm making this up in there. You can make any shape you want. So if you, say you have your own photograph, your own reference material, the Aurora Borealis or the Northern Lights, whatever you want to call them, you make whatever configuration you want. I may have this going up like this. Make this one off a little bit there. Then maybe I'll have another one coming up here. The secret to this, you guys, is you want to establish your movement of the light force early with this gray color. Don't make it too white, because white will get real chalky, and even though that would be okay in some cases, in this case, you just want a dull, soft haze. We probably will brighten it in a little bit with some more white, but right now all we're doing is designing. For instance, if you were using this for your reference material, I would take these strips and I would make strips like this, going up with those soft colors, okay? So you just take your gray, I'm going to reload now. And in this case, and I didn't do it, but you know, you might want to just mix a big pile of it, of this gray, so you don't have to keep mixing it. I don't do that too often, folks. Let me tell you why. I'm a big fan of not trying, you know, I've had a lot of people say, why do my paintings look so cartoony, so mechanical, or all one tone? Well, this is why. A lot of you pre-mix too much, and you paint with one color, one hue, one value, whatever you want to do. And every time I remix, you get a little slightly different take on that particular color, so it makes it a little bit more interesting to look at. All right, now, once again, every time you reload, be sure you wipe almost all of it off. Maybe test it on your dabble board. I've got my dabble board back here. Scrub it a little bit to make sure your brush is working, and just keep going. I want to get this hazy, grayish white tint all the way across the horizon, for one thing. Now I'm going to start the process of my little swoops up like this. You won't see any hard lines when I'm done with this. Flipping it over to get to the other side. Now sometimes you're digging in a little harder because you want to get those edges really feathered in nicely. I might go ahead and take this one right on up a little further. And I want you guys to notice that I'm really going in a complete circle. See how I'm doing this? And I'm really pushing harder than you think. I might mention another thing. Sometimes these canvases bounce a little. You probably have noticed me doing this a lot. Sometimes I do this and take my thumb. See, I'm taking my thumb and I push on the canvas, and it gives it a little more stability. But this is what you do first. It's just here. And I'll take this right off the top of the canvas. Work my way back down a little bit. Now, I'm not looking at my reference material. It's really not that important, but I am going to show you a couple things. And you see, these strips of light, whatever they are, look at this. I mean, they can just do anything. So if you're the artist, here it looks, I don't even know what's going on there. But see, that's a really strange look right there. Almost looks like rain or things coming down. And it's just so I'm just making up my own. Just as long as it's got good composition and you enjoy the process. I just like this burst of light coming up, and then with our foreground silhouetted mountains in front, it'll be cool. So I'll go back and reload again. A little bit of white, a little bit of blue, a little bit of brown. And what you're going to do, because we're about to run out of time, folks, as always, just spend a little time at your easel practicing getting this gray blending thing down, because you really need to get the softness. You can see it developing. Next time we meet, you'll see more significant things happen. We will start adding our first phases of color. Next week will be phase 1 of color. The next week will be phase 2 of color. And then, of course, the details, the highlights, and the silhouettes that come into the foreground. So I'm not going to spend too much time on mine between lessons, because I don't want you guys to miss anything. But go ahead and put as much of this up in there as you feel comfortable with, because wherever you roll in the light, that's where your color is going to go. All right. So keep that in mind, so that when you're doing this, you'll know that your design is just like you want it before you start your color. You don't want to do any guessing when you start putting your color on, folks. That's why this process that I'm showing you right now is absolutely critical to getting this painting to do everything that you want it to do. Now, as we start to run down here, I want to remind all of you, please keep those cards and letters coming. We love to hear from you guys on different subjects. We're still traveling around the country. And, if you think of something in your area that might be interesting, it's going to take a while to get to every state and to every subject, but, we're open to all kinds of possibilities. So we'd love to see some of your reference material, so we'll kind of know what to do here on the program, and even in some of our instructional materials, it helps us. So keep rolling. Now, if you'll notice, it looks like you're wringing a brush. These are bristle brushes. They're made to take the punishment. That's why we use bristle brushes. You couldn't do this with a sable, a synthetic, or a nylon. You have to use bristle brushes. And be sure to use a good one, because you need something that will take this kind of punishment. All right, now see, I'm going to leave the little strips. Well, as usual, we're going to have to say goodbye. Wish we didn't have to, but it's been a lot of fun. It's going to get more exciting next time, so I hope you'll be able to join us. Just keep working us out. God bless you. Stay inspired. Keep painting. And I promise I'm going to see you right here real soon.